Hello, this is Rumor, and thank you for joining me once again if you are here at my little tray table outpost for my moon cycle readings. I have previously discussed a moon cycle spread and the shorter version of that spread that I will do for the new moon and most recently the first quarter moon. And today I would like to move onward to the full moon. Now, the moon is at full luminosity at this stage. So this stage for me personally entails a swap out of the cards. Whereas I went for ones that just evoked that darker new moon energy for me at the outset, I'm going to bring in a little bit more illumination with the following decks. Now, the Flowers of the Night Oracle is the one where I drew my original new moon intention card. I'm still referring to that through the full cycle. So hold on to this. And that card was Patience. But I am for now otherwise retiring this oracle deck, the Flowers of the Night, until the next new moon. And in its place, we'll be using Stacey DeMarco's Queen of the Moon Oracle. Likewise, the Wanderer's Tarot. In its stead, I shall be switching to the Moonchild Tarot. And then, instead of the Claire de Lune Lenormand, I will be shifting to the Mondnacht Lenormand. And likewise, where I had used this Black Moonstone for new moon energy, I bring out this Rainbow Moonstone for the full moon because it looks like a little mini fully illuminated moon to me. So, that. The Moon Journal, continue to work with this one. This is where I pull the card for the moon phase. So here now we are going into our full moon, and the affirmation for that is, I'm charged with full luminous energy. I forgive and count my blessings. So this goes on my card stand with my intention now over at my desk to bear in mind through this full moon stage. Now to get to the spread. I'm going to try to go through these next two cycle spreads a bit more quickly than I have been doing in the past. I keep saying I'm not going to yammer on and on as much about my personal interpretations as to how it actually relates to my life, but I have not succeeded in that, and I'm really going to try to this time do better. But in any case, so like I said, my intention of patience is still at play here, but I will be drawing another oracle card just in relation to this specific full moon reading and where I am at this stage, how I've been progressing towards this goal. My first quarter check-in showed me what progress I had made to that point, and now we're seeing where we are. When the moon is in fact illuminated in full, that's when I would ideally want to really be realizing this goal. And am I? So that's what the cards will tell me. So to get started here, just going to shift these to the side for now. I'll keep this at center. Then to shuffle here, and I shared in my last video for the first quarter reading, I usually take into account flyers, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to pass on that. But anyways, I was saying before how even though I neglected to do it during my new moon reading, I usually do look for my signifier card in helping me determine how I split the deck in this case. I mean, on a normal basis for any kind of tarot reading, I usually just split the deck. But in this case, I do look for my Queen of Cups signifier. So as I'm shuffling and just keeping in mind in general, what progress have I made since the new moon? Keep focusing on that. And now we flip. I'm going to look for my Queen of Cups. This deck is so beautiful and luxe to work with. It's also so thick and kind of hard to handle. Oh, but here she is. Okay. So here is my Queen of Cups. Put her down here to underlie that original new moon intention. And now I will start to lay the cards down in the same way that I have done previously. Following my little wild unknown moon cycles here, we're going to make a full circle round the table to reflect that full moon. I'm skipping where the full moon actually appears on the cloth just because the oracle card will ultimately go there when I'm ready to look at that. But meanwhile, I don't even know if I'm doing this consistently. I probably did them face down before, huh? I think I dealt them out face down before, and now I've done it facing up, but whatever. I am more concerned with how this might be showing up. Hopefully it's okay. These are very large cards. I am constantly knocking into my camera, and I'm kneeling on the floor, and I'm getting old and it's uncomfortable. So I might be shifting around a lot. I'm noticing my arms are really coming in from the side here because of how I've got things set up here, but hopefully you're able to see okay. So now, just to talk through these card positions for the full moon spread. Card number 1, what have I cultivated since the new moon towards this intention of patience? 2, what brings me joy as I work towards this goal? So now that things are nicely lit, bring in a little bit more joy into that. It doesn't all have to be a slog. I mean, this is something that we're working towards, right, to better ourselves, whatever the intention might be. And so I think it's nice at this stage to reflect on what's actually bringing joy as we do put the work in. Number 3, what are my senses and intuition telling me at this time? Drawing from that bright, luminous full moon energy, our intuitive senses can be heightened through that. What's holding me back from my new moon intention? Okay, so as much as I want to keep it joyful and everything, the fact is, even with the best of intentions of realizing the intention, really optimizing it by this time of the full moon, we might not quite be there yet. This is an ongoing process through the cycle. And so if we haven't fully achieved the goal, this 4th position then just relates to what is still holding me back from this? If I'm really not showing up as my best self and being patient, what's more to work on? And then number 5, finally, how can I release this energy? And so this card position can be the call to course correct. So if there is something I'm still kind of clinging on to, what do I just need to let go of? Or I could look at it just more as advice of, okay, if I need to pivot, what direction do I need to go? So, it could be the card itself in the context of this that could inform that more, whether it is something letting go of or just advice on what direction to go into. So in any case, that's our setup for these cards. So if I'm looking at this in terms of what I've cultivated since the new moon, well, look at that. Temperance. So that's good, right? I think it's like this kind of balance and finding moderation is essential to finding patience. And so, just to speak generally, I think that with whatever things have been testing my patience lately, I'm finding ways of balancing out my own temperament with that. If my instinct is to maybe get riled and aggravated, maybe even feel angry, then that's when I can just sort of make a mental check. Like, okay, calm down, keep things in perspective. What can you be grateful for in this moment? And this can also relate to just balancing out what the tasks are and maybe like how I'm budgeting my time, so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can spin it. Generally, I think that's a very nice message. I think in certain ways, I've done a better job of keeping things in moderation so I don't tip into that impatient zone. So now, what is bringing me joy as I continue to work towards this goal? 10 of Wands. Wow. Okay. So this is traditionally a card that I'll usually see as one being very burdensome, having to carry a lot. But I think that very often I want to look at that negative side of it, but like the positive side of it is like, in which this card, this actual artwork seems to convey, where like this person doesn't look beaten down. This is where it can really depend on the artwork that you're looking at, because sometimes it just seems like, okay, you are overloaded. Something's got to give. You've got to let go of something. You can't do it all at once. But sometimes it's encouraging you to be like, well, no, you've got a lot on your plate. Yeah, but you got this. Just keep going. One step in front of the other. Keep on going. And so I have had a lot of activity lately. Again, just to speak to this generally, it is the sort of thing that could like easily lead me to overwhelm, and then I could lose patience either with myself or with other people. But again, I think because I have maintained this spirit of temperament towards that goal, I think it's helped me to carry the things that I need to. And I'm learning how to do so with more patience and grace, and being thankful for what those tasks might be. Because, not every responsibility has to be a burden. If you look at it that way, it's sure going to feel like one. So just trying to be a little bit lighter in my step as I carry certain obligations, and try to look at them not as much as obligations, but something joyful indeed. Like if I can acknowledge the purpose of them, that the ultimate thing to be gained from them is good and something that I want and can benefit from, then, calm down. I got to quit my moaning, right? So anyways, that's kind of generally how I'm seeing that. So what are my senses and intuition telling me at this time, now that they're hopefully a bit heightened by the fuller moon? 6 of Swords. I can definitely get myself like in a mindset, like I said, that can easily tip things towards the negative, get me dwelling on certain things in ways that it just doesn't serve me very well, and to kind of like move on from that and whatever might be causing that kind of like toxicity and thought, just to like stay above that and move into those calmer waters. And as I'm looking at this more closely, how beautiful. It looks like Stonehenge is actually on the ocean floor. You can see like the ripples of water there, which just feels so like watery and intuitive. And I think that rather than sort of descending into the emotional depths that I can, if my thoughts just keep focusing on things that might make me sad or upset. I think this card's been coming up for me as like encouragement of just kind of like transcending that and just getting a bit more harmonious in thought. It does sort of like help anchor my emotions then accordingly. And anyways, so I think it's just like my intuition is telling me how you stay the course of that, but I think also giving me credit that I've like gotten there, that this is something that I've been mindful of, and to consider the ways in which I have been like tempering things and carrying the burdens that I need to, but again, just with a lighter step and a bit more grace and a bit more grace and patience for myself. So for me, things are always coming, back to the mind. And I mean, I think that's for all of us, really. I mean, you always hear mind over matter, and it really is so important. So I'm glad that a card like this comes up to keep me mindful of that it's not just like the stuff and the activity and everything that's going on, or what I even might be feeling, but just how much that is impacted. And the reality, as I'm perceiving it, all depends on my perception, how I am framing it in my own head. So then number 4, what is holding me back from my new moon intention? So I feel like I've been wanting to give myself some accolades here, like, yay, high five, you've been doing great. But, can always do better. So what holds me back? The Hermit. More often than not, I see the Hermit as a positive card, because I really love living in this space. I love withdrawing and being introspective and everything, but this is holding me back. So of course I have to look at this in shadow, and I need to emerge more from my cave here. This isn't the time right now to just be hiding away. And maybe those are ways in which I try to stay in control of my situations. If there are the things that are testing my patience and overwhelming me in some way, my coping mechanism is to withdraw and to just not engage, like I'm hiding from it. Because if I don't have to face it, then it's not going to cause me that anxiety. But I definitely feel that push these days. And it, honestly, this isn't just the moon getting brighter, like the year is. The days are longer, and the rhythm of life, I've really noticed the shift, where it's coming out of that more hermity stage of winter, where it feels good to be like going within and staying inside. I really can sense it with myself and others, how this time of year is really just like drawing everyone out of their shells, and activity is really ramping up. And of course, the natural ebb and flow that's necessary. You can't just keep busy going and interacting with people all the time. There is then ultimately that time where it's necessary to, again, withdraw. But I think this encourages me right now, at this point in the spring, it is time to not hide away, but engage and just work on these lessons that I've been learning that can help me just kind of keep that balance and moderate my temperament, and I'll be fine. So then, how I can release this energy, 10 of Swords. Okay, so it's coming back to my mindset. I can feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders, which this card can often speak to, but this is coming up for what's joyful. So it's like, this all tells me that like everything that's going on right now, any like interactions I'm having with people, any obligations that are coming up, like it's all generally for the best. For me, this is good. This is the time to come out and emerge and live. And I think I got into that a bit in my last reading for myself, where, after grieving for the past year, the grief is going to continue, but it's like, I'm also the one who's still alive. And I do feel like it's this time to like emerge and yeah, not look at these things as like, as burdens. And it is a tendency for me to want to like isolate myself, and maybe I was too tender for a time to reach out to others and kind of carry their burdens for them. But I've definitely been feeling stronger and much better able to do that. And so I think that it's just like, yeah, whatever things could still be like overwhelming me, wanting me to hide back in my little cave here, if it just can seem like too much, I just have that kind of like mental chatter and overwhelm and everything. just continuing to work on releasing that. And it's very often the getting out and the doing that helps. Not that finding distraction is always the answer to everything, but I think that like my risk of being the hermit is that that's when I get very in my head. And that's when I tip into the point where the hermit is no longer a positive thing for me. And I just can get like too mired in thoughts that I just need to move on from. And so I think this is just the reminder of that, going back to this lesson of the 6 and moving forward. And I think just, yes. So just releasing this, heaviness of mind, just all the stuff that might be getting in my head, get out of my head, get out, go for a walk in nature, talk to other people, getting out there and communicating it constructively and not making it all about me, shifting focus to others. That is what helps me. If I can make the space in my head, that helps me make the space for the better thoughts, the more positive thoughts, the more proactive thoughts, the things that can get me like more into action. And when I do that, those are the things that it does help me with my patients, because first of all, I probably get more irritable with others the more that I've got on my own mind, and I'm just sort of like aggravated if I'm having to like, I can't really like give the, I guess if I'm preoccupied, like too preoccupied to listen to someone else, I mean, that can just kind of get me on edge. And then also just having that patience with myself. Sitting and stewing in any way on any given thing just in my mind is not going to help me. And so I've got to just like release from that, because my joy is not here. It's here right now. It's in the out and the doing. And so I need to be out and inviting these added responsibilities and activities and so on and so forth. So now let's draw from our oracle deck, the Queen of the Moon, to punctuate this. And I don't know why I feel the need to raise my intonation at the end of my clauses like this. How annoying. Is intonation even the right word, or do I mean inflection? I think I meant inflection. Whatever. All right, so Queenie, what you got to say for this reading? Is generally addressing how well I have cultivated my new moon intention at this stage. And if there is this advice for course correcting a bit, letting something go, that is welcome as well. Sovereignty. Ooh, and this is the card that's actually on the cover here. I don't know if I've ever drawn this one. So, put this where my full moon is. Going right to the guidebook. This is number 41. You have sovereignty over your own life. Act with grace and confidence. You have the ability to unite disparate people and views should you choose to do so. The buck stops with you. You are powerful. Act like it. I reign over my own realm. Goddesses of the moon are one of the oldest kinds of feminine divine, and I've never heard it said that way. Is it meant to say that way, or was it meant to say divine feminine? Either way, I like it. And feature in mythologies from almost every corner of the globe, from Diana of ancient Rome and the Greek Artemis to the Semitic Astarte and Hina from Polynesia. Apologies if I've mispronounced names. The link with the feminine divine and the lunar planet and cycles is a strong one. These goddesses in all their myriad of forms were extremely powerful and demonstrated to women that they naturally had power as well. We should strive to be the powerful queens of our own domain. Women especially have been socialized to defer, to keep small, to be quiet, and to hold a very twisted kind of service that borders on servitude. While in many first world countries, women can choose to be what they wish to be on paper, Women still experience inequality in most countries in areas such as wage disparity and an imbalance of the numbers of women in government or in high-level board positions. However, what has been accepted in the past is not what will be accepted in the future. A new queendom is coming. When we reign over our own lives, it is us that take on the responsibility for our own change and decisions. The Moon Queen knows that we, just under the divine, are our own rulers, and as such, the buck stops here. Therefore, it is worth us investing in growing our own self-awareness, our own self-trust, self-care, and self-esteem in real and practical ways. We must, as any queen would, set firm boundaries to protect our queendom and those who are under our protection. This does not mean we become cruel rulers. We should always aim for benevolence, fairness, and a great love for all, as well as ourselves. It does mean we may have to push against those who do not respect our line in the sand. So this gives a companion stone or metal, in this case, platinum. So this little affirmation here is a case where I would bring this back from the new moon, where there was the affirmation in the guidebook for this other deck, and touching each of the 10 beads, just recite it each time going along up the line. So I will often do that for the full moon as well, based on this. So I would go through and 10 times say, I reign over my own realm. So on and so forth, whether it's out loud or just in my mind, as a sort of mini meditation on that, to really reinforce this message for myself. So this is interesting. It's a strong message to get at the full moon. I mean, I feel like it really captures that, like, woof, that brightness, that full potency and optimization of this time, like, bam. And it's very reassuring that, like, anything that might make me feel overwhelmed and like I'm losing a sense of agency, you know, maybe those are the things that just make me struggle with patience, you know, because there are things that happen in life that are out of your control, and all you can do then is focus on what is in your control. And as I was speaking to before, like my mindset is so key with that. It's another way of shifting something from the negative to the positive. If I feel like there's something, I just don't have control over it. Well, what within that situation can I control? At the very least, I can control my response to it. There might be some other things within that too that I can. And again, just shifting my mindset, looking at things less as burdensome, but actually things that are to my benefit in some way and that I'm getting something out of. And again, just talking to it so generally. But I think ultimately my personal takeaway from this particular reading is just that continuous balance in my, like, attitude towards things, and the more that I can moderate my own thoughts, and part of what helps me in that is not making it yet another mental activity, but also working to get outside of my own head by, like, getting out and doing, and I think just being among others and interacting and, you know, communicating more openly and freely, and all of that just kind of feeds into this idea of finding, again, patience with others, patience with self, and with everything I spoke to in my previous readings, I feel like it coincides. And, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking of more specific ways in which this translates to that, but just keeping it kind of overarching for your sake, because really I'm just here to demonstrate what this reading is. So that's the full reading. And as I have been sharing, I also have my Quickie version, in which case whether I did it first or second, the oracle card, you know, I don't think the order matters. So let's say I shuffle this again, drew this card, I lay it down in the center, and then these, instead of doing this full spread, I would instead just have two positions. One, what have I cultivated since the new moon? And two, what must I release? So basically, this specific card that I drew for myself today, that's the same position as card number 1. But now this one is actually card number 5. So just cutting to the chase from what have I cultivated? What do I need to release? And so everything else that I discussed in between, that is just if I have the time and inclination to want to unpack that further. But if I really just want to get down to it. So in this case, I guess if I wanted to, I could say, since this is the card I technically drew for that question, I could lay that down here. But hey, let's just say this is, I shuffled and this is how the cards came out this time. This card was not in that place before. This was otherwise what was giving me joy in this process. But let's just say I pulled it and now it's saying like, okay, I've already discussed what I've cultivated since the new moon. And what must I release? So now I would be looking at this card as like, okay, I've taken on too much. And maybe that's why I am short on my patience. And so something's just got to give. And so what could that be? Can I take more discerning action in what obligations I'm taking on this time? Can I just be a bit more discriminating about what I do and do not do and get better at setting those boundaries, embracing this essence of sovereignty here? So that is how a quickie reading might play out. And as I also will do with the other stages, the Lenormand reading. And I established last time how much I suck at Lenormand. Yay! So I'm so glad that I'm doing it again. So I can just continue to expose my limitations for your entertainment and insight into all the ways in which I lack. And at this point, you're probably already like, well, you suck at reading tarot too, from what I just saw. And you know what? That's fair. That's fair. I might suck at tarot. It works for me in my head. I never know if what I'm sharing, my interpretations and how I'm articulating it, I never know if that's coming across and making any sense to anyone else. But trust me, there's method to the madness of it in my own noggin. Oh. Whoops. I did have an insight on my last one, though, looking back on it. I think that actually, I'm bringing it up. It's a tangent, but it does kind of relate to this. I expressed last time I wasn't exactly sure what the Lenormand cards were trying to tell me. I wasn't quite sure how to interpret the Tower card that had come first, but it dawned on me after the fact that the Tower card in Lenormand can also be a sense of isolation. So I was thinking that, could that mean ending home isolation, which in that case, so maybe I just sucked at Lenormand on that video, but not ultimately, because the more I thought of it, that interpretation did come to me. And now that Hermit card is just kind of gelling it in my head. Okay, but anyways, so whether I'm doing quickie reading or the long version, at the end, I will punctuate it with a 3-card Lenormand draw. Well, let's see. I don't know what I'm feeling. These are splitting out here. Just for added clarity. I don't know, man. I don't think, do you do this? I was trying to feel for that split, but I just got this sense I'm not done shuffling yet. But as I was saying, now that when the cards start falling, then that's when I feel like they're telling me to stop shuffling. Okay. But as I was saying, I pull it for added clarity. That is, if I am able to interpret it. I'm not good at Lenormand. Or it's a little elaboration. Maybe it's just a little added insight. So, okay, I'm splitting it here. Move this up a little bit. Oops. Some of that clutter. All right, so got, snake, ring, bear. So I get torn. Again, this is where I feel like I am way too wishy-washy of a reader to read Lenormand. I do think that that's a big part of the struggle because I love the kind of loosey-goosiness of tarot, even though not everyone might see it that way. There might be people who are like, can get very, very, very specific insights looking at tarot cards, but I kind of like the openness and the multiple layers of interpretation you could draw from that, where I feel like I am more bent that way. And I think it's like Lenormand, I just have the hardest time locking on a single thing. So in this case, the snake, I know that this can relate to something that is like a threat, a danger, maybe some kind of betrayal, someone being a snake in your life. But then there's also that interpretation that actually, is it the Celtic Lenormand offers an alternative snake card? And I'm sure maybe other decks do the same thing, but I know in that deck specifically, they actually give you another option for it that does lean towards the interpretation of the snake as transformation. So I think with everything I'm speaking to, I don't really know I'll keep my eyes open if there is some kind of like dangerous negative element I should be on the lookout for. But I feel like in this case, I'm taking it as a sense of transformation. And this is where I'm probably going to drive people crazy because of the way that I interpret certain cards might not be the same, because the bear is one that I can like falter over, because I know that sometimes people look at the bear as finances, right? I guess it can relate to that. I tend to see it as like a big mama bear. I kind of see like a protectiveness and like an authority, maybe like boss bear also. So this with commitment at the center. It's weird, but I'm seeing it as like sort of this protective or just even kind of like fierce, like protective commitment to my transformation. That's how I'm getting it as a tarot reader trying to read Lenormand. That's what I'm getting from this right now. If you have a different insight on that, please, please, please tell me. But I think it's just because I'm looking to this strong sovereign at the center here. And I think that it's just reinforcing that idea of like, it's not just enough to like be wanting this and aspiring to it. You gotta do it. Like, this bear has that authoritative role, like the sovereign to me. And it's about like committing to it and acknowledging that like I can attain it if I do the work. I have that right to set my boundaries. Also, if there are those things that kind of threaten to derail me in any way, I think it's a really important aspect of my transformation, this shedding of just what is not working for me. And so much of that I've spoken to in the previous readings. And so I think this is just a call to like really step up and strongly commit to that. That Six of Swords, moving on from what's not serving into what does, and just continually trying to shed the less constructive habits and emerge from this as a higher version of myself, which I've been speaking to ever since the new moon when that judgment card came up for me. So that's it for the full moon. As always, let me know, what do you do, if you do anything, for the lunar cycle? Do you have a way of observing it? Do you have readings? Do you have rituals? Is it the full moon specifically that you will honor and draw from in some way? Just let me know. What are your full moon rituals? And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back next with the last installment of these moon cycle spreads for the third quarter moon, aka waning half moon. Bye.